welcome to the Naughty Time. So what do you think of when you hear the word brownie? Is it a little hobgoblin? Is it a junior Girl Scout? Is it a camera? Or is it that chocolatey cake-like bar that we all have come to love? Well, most of us anyway. In the 1500s in Scotland, the first known instance of the word brownie appeared. These were referencing little benevolent goblins that were thought to bring good tidings to Scottish farmhouses. Then in the 1900s, we had Kodak, the camera, called a brownie. Then in 1916, Girl Scouts started referring to their junior girls as brownies, and they have little brown uniforms. But that's not the brownies we are talking about. So in 1893, Bertha Palmer from the Palmer House Hilton in Chicago, and it's still there today, you can go visit it, wanted her pastry chef to create a bar-like cake that could be served in the boxed lunches at the Columbian World's Fair. Now, they didn't call them a brownie, but the ratios of the flour to the sugar to the eggs to the butter are what is commonly used in our brownie recipes today. If you go down to the Palmer House, you can actually still get these. And I'm going to be listing the recipe that I used directly from the Hilton Palmer House. I'll list that below. It wasn't until 1896, someone by the name of Fanny Farmer, who most of us bakers should know, published a recipe for a bar-like cake in the Boston Cooking School cookbook. But there was no chocolate in it. And that's what we call today a blondie. Some people think that it was a housewife from Bangor, Maine that made it, but the difference between hers and the current brownie is that it used brown sugar versus white sugar. So most of the history of the brownie points back to the Palmer House. Then in 1898, the Kansas City Journal also listed them under their confections. Now, I'm sure every home cook has their own variations to them. Everybody has their favorite recipe. A few weeks ago, we tried Katharine Hepburn's, which went over like a 2 thumbs up smash hit in this house. Okay, our first ingredient are semi-sweet chocolate. Only using a half a pound of butter, which is 2 sticks. 12 ounces of granulated sugar, so I'm using 6. Of all-purpose flour, I'm using 2. 8 eggs. It didn't specify what size. I'm using medium. I'm only using 4 because, again, we're cutting this recipe in half. Crushed walnuts. I have not crushed these yet, but this is 6 ounces, well, a little over 6 ounces. Vanilla extract. It doesn't specify amount. I'm going to probably use a teaspoon. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the flour and the sugar together. So I think that's pretty good. So I just turned on my double boiler. I'm going to start adding things. As you can see, I have a glass bowl inside of a kettle, and in the kettle I have the water. So I'm going to put in my half-pound butter and start getting that melting. And then we're going to speed you up so that you don't have to wait. It's like watching paint dry. All right, see you in a few. Okay, so this is just about melted. I'm going to go ahead and slowly add the chocolate chips carefully so I don't burn myself. And I'm going to just start mixing these around. So you can see that the chocolate's already starting to melt. It's going to melt really fast, but we want it to incorporate so that it's nice and creamy. That looks good. What we're going to do now is add the flour and sugar mixture. Now I've heard that these, when made, are kind of gooey and they're best served cold. I like a warm brownie, so I'm not sure, if I would make these again, but we want to cover all our bases. So I just added a teaspoon of vanilla to my 4 eggs, and I'm just going to give them a quick little stir. Okay, now I'm going to mix this in, and hopefully it's cooled enough that these won't scramble on me. Feels cool enough. And it's curious that they're cooked low and slow. So at 300, I don't normally cook brownies or cakes at that temperature. Now, it does not say if we should flour or grease this pan. I am using a non-stick pan, so hopefully it will not stick. All right, now we're going to crush these. I put the walnuts, these are halved walnuts, and I put them in a little bag. I find it's easier than chopping, and I can take out some of my frustrations. It says to pour these on and press down slightly. So let's go ahead and sprinkle these on. These are as gooey as I think they're going to be. I don't know how that worked out for the county fair. That's all I'm going to say about that. The ladies probably had nice chocolate on their lovely gloves. Okay, now I'm just going to take my spoon, kind of press this down slightly. I'm not going to soak them in it, but I'm just kind of patting them in. Okay, that's done. Now we are going to pop these in the oven. They look good for 30 to 40 minutes. I'm making this in a 9x9, so I think it's going to be a little thicker. I'm going to just watch it. I'm just going to kind of watch it, and I'll let you know the time when I get done. Okay, so I decided to go with a half of the recipe that they listed for the brownies, for the apricot glaze. I've got in here a half a cup of water. I'm using if I can hold the spoon right, half a teaspoon of unflavored gelatin. So it says about 4 ounces of apricot preserves. So I'm just going to use maybe 1/3 of the jar, because this is a 12-ounce jar. That's probably good. It's probably a little more of that. Okay, so what you gotta do is, I'm gonna get a whisk out. You want it to come to a boil. So I'm just gonna kind of get this started here. Once it comes to a boil, you're gonna leave it go for 2 minutes. So here are the baked brownies. I took these out at 35 minutes. At 30 minutes, they felt pretty good, but they still had a couple spots that seemed really, really soft. So I put them in for another 5 minutes, and then you can see around the edges how the brownie's starting to pull away from the edge of the pan, and the center is still got a moist but solid crumb. And these have been cooling for about a half hour now. It says to do the glaze when it's warm, but I left my brownie cool for just a little bit. Okay, I'm starting to see it coming to a boil around the edges. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's coming on this side. You can kind of see it starting to boil. And I'm starting to get a slow boil in the center. All right, I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes. I'm going to take this off now. It seems a little thin still, but I think once it starts to cool, it might thicken up. All right, I'm going to start brushing the glaze on. It still seems a little thin, but I think it'll get going once I start putting this on. Yeah, I'm glad I cut this in half. I think 2 cups of this stuff would have been way too much. All right, we are going to let these cool for a little bit. Okay, as you can see, it's very, it's still very moist. And I think that has to do with the glaze that's on top. I only cut a little piece and this is still really warm, but I'm gonna go ahead and try it. Okay, verdict on the Palmer House 1893 brownies. They're very moist, and I think these really do need to be set up and cooled. I don't think these are going to hold together if you tried to cut them while they're still warm. Although they're very good warm, they just are too moist of a brownie. You probably could have cooked it, I could have cooked it a little longer, but I didn't want it to dry out. And the glaze, I think, is helping contribute to the moisture in the brownies. But once that sets, I think it'll be okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the refrigerator. I will put a picture at the end once they're chilled. And I give these a 2 thumbs up. They're just different than what I expected. But we can thank this dessert to the Palmer House in Chicago by Hilton. I'm not sponsored by them. I have no affiliation with them. We'll see you next time on the Naughty Time. If you like this and want to see others, big thumbs up. If you want to be notified of when I upload next, just hit the subscribe button. Thanks. See you next time. I'm going to make a little addendum. Julia says that they suck. She says she does not like them. Fruity and brownie don't go well together. I think they're pretty good.